Welcome back. It's been nearly 3 months since staple 24-hour pie spot and diner Sherry's suddenly closed the doors of all of its Oregon restaurants, leaving a gaping hole in the stomachs of many Oregonians. But in this new post-Sherry's era, there are still plenty of other neighborhood spots serving a loaded, warm plate of food and friendly smiles. That's the focus of this week's edition of Willamette Week. And to break it down, we're joined by Willamette Week Assistant Arts and Culture Editor Andrew Jankowski. Andrew, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Closing of Sherry's in Oregon, really it happened quite abruptly. What kind of impact do you think it's had on their longtime customers?
So when we lost Sherry's here in Oregon, we lost somewhere that was not only affordable, but also somewhere that served familiar comfort foods that was open at all hours of the day. It was a welcoming space that people would go to not only celebrate special occasions, like we noted with some of our reader memories, where people talked about celebrating the holidays there, as well as after-school events, but also low points in their life, and even just because, but either way, they would get something that was familiar, affordable, and served with a friendly face.
Tell us a little bit about diners and their place in the Portland area compared to other restaurants.
Yeah, so diners, like restaurants here in Oregon, they're all using fresh ingredients, but diners tend to have a very familiar, accessible menu items, things that we're familiar with that we would call quintessentially American, like burgers, sandwiches, breakfast platters that are like meats and eggs and toast, waffles, pancakes, that sort of thing. They're always keeping the coffee fresh. But they also trace back to the 1950s, where counter service was pretty common, along with milkshakes being pretty frequently available. But they also trace back to full service diner carts back when trains were a more common mode of transportation. And just because we think, quintessentially American, there are also comfort foods that are found all across the world that can get served alongside it, and that's what makes them really American.
You created a guide really highlighting a plethora of alternative diner options on both sides of the Columbia. Can you name one or two that stood out to you?
Yeah, a few that stood out were Banning's Restaurant and Pie House out in Tigard. We profiled a few of their regulars to talk about what diners mean in a sort of community sense, along with a few other locations. We also talked about Stardust Diner in Vancouver, where Sherry's is still operating, but they really throw back to the 1950s and have so much more chrome than Sherry's could ever have dreamed of.
I'm missing their cherry pies, let me tell you that much right now.
Oh, I believe it, yeah.
My goodness, Andrew, thank you for that. You can read the entire article in the latest edition of Willamette Week on newsstands now or online at wweek.com.